found this crazy 3D button concept on Instagram that got a bunch of comments basically saying that developers wouldn't be too happy if they had to create this on the web. In this video, I want to show you how you can take control and bring your own ideas to life without any extra help from developers. You see, when you create a concept like this in Figma, all you have is an image, or at best a prototype. So let me show you how you can utilize Framer to design your ideas on a familiar freeform canvas, just like in Figma, but then at the end, be able to publish them straight to the internet as a live working website. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So as you can see, here's this little button, and indeed, some developers who are still writing code to create websites, they might be a little bit afraid of this. But we designers, we create these concepts, and what we know is how to create frames, how to draw those frames in Figma, and how to add text layers and icons. That's what we know. So this is what we're gonna do in this video. We're gonna do the same exact things, draw frames, add text layers, and then have a live working website at the end. So I'm gonna just jump into Framer. This is where we're gonna work in, and I'm gonna have a remix link for this project. So if you don't understand something, you can just remix it and just take a look yourself. And also you can remix the project and go to the pages panel here and go to the starter page, because you're gonna be able to see what I'm saying right here. Also, you're gonna have this little star icon that we're gonna use for the button, and you can just start building with me for a little practice. So I'm gonna go back to my page, which is the tutorial, and we're gonna just start creating this. It is going to be really easy. You're gonna see it's super simple. So we're gonna just press T on our keyboard and add the text layer. Super simple, no coding, no nothing. So I'm gonna just write get started, and then I'm gonna just select the text. On the right panel, I can change the color of the text. Super simple again. Really similar to Figma. Then I'm gonna also change the font. It's gonna be Clash Display or Clash Grotesque. I'm not sure which one I used here, but let's go with Clash Grotesque. And then I'm gonna also switch to medium weight. And I think that's all I have to do here on the right properties panel. Now we can actually wrap this inside of a frame so we can have that nice outline. So to do that, I can right click and click add stack, but I can also press Option, Command and Enter on my keyboard. So we're gonna probably use that later in the video. So now we can see that this stack is wrapping the get started text. So I can just rename this to, I don't know, button, or maybe just text wrapper. I'm gonna use text wrapper here. And then I'm gonna set the width of this text wrapper to fit content, so it nicely fits the content within, which is the text layer. So then I can just adjust the height of this to 48 pixels. And then I'm gonna also make sure that we have a little bit more padding on the right and on the left. So maybe 20 for now. And then I'm gonna add the border here. So I'm gonna click here, and then it is going to be white and just 1 pixels. And that's it. Now we have a button, but we have to round these corners here on the right panel. So I'm gonna just turn up the radius a little bit, maybe let's set it to 100. So it's gonna be really rounded. So yeah, it looks pretty nice, looks like a button, but we have to add some additional elements to make sure that we will have that nice animation. So if you take a look at this, you can see that we also have a little backdrop in the background that will nicely move to the bottom left as we hover over. So we also have to create that. So to create that frame, we can just press F on our keyboard and draw a frame. Really simple. I'm gonna set its height to 48 pixels. And then I'm going to remove its fill color, and then we're going to set a border. It is going to be the same wide border with the same 100 corner radius. So we are going to be able to just put it behind the button, but we're going to do it a little bit later. Now what I want to also make sure is that this button actually here, the text wrapper frame, has a background color, because now it doesn't have one, and it is going to be see-through. We're going to see the things behind it, which is not really great. So let's just add like a solid black fill color. Okay, so now I think I'll also just rename this frame that we created. Let's name it to backdrop. And then now at this point, we can group these together inside of a common frame. So I can select both of them and then press Option, Command and Enter on my keyboard. I think you remember that this is the shortcut for adding a stack. So now I'll set this to a with fit content as well. And then to be able to position this backdrop to behind the actual text wrapper that we created right here, we have to set it to a different positioning type, because you can see that now it's relative and I cannot really position it behind the text wrapper. It's just being reordered here. So I can just switch it to absolute positioning. So now it's not gonna be part of the flow of this stack, and I can move it anywhere. So as you can see with my arrow keys, I'm moving it basically anywhere. But we have a little issue here, and that's the fact that it's cutting off a little bit here and here. So it's because we wrapped the text wrapper and the backdrop in a common stack, and it is set to overflow hidden. We have to set it to overflow visible. Now you can see that it is nicely visible. By the way, I'm going to also rename this stack to maybe button or 3D button. Okay, so now all I have to do is I have to make sure that the backdrop is actually behind the text wrapper, because now you can see that it's clearly above it. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that the text wrapper has a higher Z index than the backdrop. You can see that the backdrop now has 1, and the text wrapper doesn't have 1 specified here, but if I go to styles and click this plus button, I can go down to Z index, and now you can see that it just has a Z index 0. So if I set it to a higher number, so let's say 2, now you can see that it's nicely above the other element, which is the backdrop, which has a lower Z index, more specifically 1. So now what I can do is I can just make sure that this backdrop has the same size as the text wrapper frame. How can I do that really easily? Well, I can use the pins right here. So if I activate all of these pins and set them to 0, it will basically mean that now this backdrop is basically pinned to the top, right, left, and bottom of its parent with 0 pixel distance. And if, for example, this parent frame, which is by the way the 3D button, is changing in width, the backdrop will also change with it, because again, it is pinned to all sides with 0 pixel distance. So when does this 3D button will change in width? Well, it's set to a width fit, so it fits the content within. So that basically means that when the text wrapper changes its width, it is going to also change with it. So the 3D button will change with the width of the text wrapper. But the text wrapper is also set to width fit. So then it basically means that when we change the text here, it will get a little bit wider. As you can see, the whole thing is just getting wider. And if I click the backdrop here, you can see that it is also nicely changing its width because of these pins. If we deactivate these pins, it is not going to be responsive and it's not going to adapt to its parent's size. Great, so now that we covered this, I can just remove these additional letters and we can add some additional elements that we will need. So I think we will need a couple of stars, and then we're going to also need a little light that runs through the button as we hover over it. So let's quickly add those as well. Okay, so in order to create the highlight, we can create another frame. So I'm going to just press F on my keyboard, draw another frame, and then I'm going to remove its fill color. And within this frame, we're going to add those little frames for the highlight effect. But let's rename this frame to highlight. And then again, press F and draw another frame. It's going to be 7 pixels of width, and then the color will be white. And then I'm going to create another one, which will be 2 pixels width. And then, yeah, basically this little thing, both of them actually, will run through this layer, creating that highlight effect like this. But I'll also have to make sure that they are rotated slightly. So I'll just make them a little bit bigger, and then I'll wrap them in a common stack or just the frame, just to make sure that I can move them together, because now it's a little bit hard moving them together. I have to select both of them. It's easier if we group them together. So I'm going to just press Command and Enter on my keyboard. That is the shortcut for adding a frame. As you remember, adding a stack is basically Option Command and Enter. Adding a frame is just Command and Enter. And basically now it's just going to wrap them in a frame, not a stack. So they will still be absolutely positioned within. By the way, if you're a little bit confused with relative and absolute positioning, I have another video that dives really deep into those concepts. It's going to be down in the description, so maybe after this video you can watch that to learn more about those. But now back to this video. I can just rename this frame that wraps these two lines, I don't know, line wrappers, and then this can be line 1, and then this can be line 2. I really like naming my layers because then I will know what is going on if I just look at my layers panel. So now I'll just make sure that these are all good. And yeah, I can now just rotate this whole thing and both of them will be rotated. So I think we have a left rotation here. So I'm going to rotate it slightly to the left and then I'm going to move it here. But what is also really important here is to make sure that this highlight also is rounded fully. So the corner radius will be 100 here. So now as you can see, it's perfect. And I can just basically Command and X here. It will cut it and place it onto my clipboard. And now I can paste it within our button that we created here. So I think we're going to paste it within the text wrapper. So I'm going to press Command and V here. And now you can see that the text wrapper now not only has the text, but also this highlight. But you can see that again, we have the same issue that we had before, that we can only reorder these two, the highlight and the text. So what we have to do is we have to again set it to absolute positioning. So it's now not part of this stack flow and we can just move it anywhere with the arrow keys. Of course, again, here what we need is the same behavior as the backdrop, basically pinning it to all sides. So I'm going to set all of these pins to 0 and then hopefully it's going to be great. And yes, I think let's just try this. Yeah, it will look something like this when it runs through the whole thing. And yeah, I think it looks really nice. So it is basically just going to wait right here at the left, and then we're going to animate it to the right side when we hover over it. Cool. So now we have the highlight. So now the only thing that we need is just the stars. So to create that, again, we're going to draw a frame. We are designers. We know how to draw frames. It is really easy. So this frame can be renamed to stars, not starts, but stars. And again, fill color will not be needed here. And I'll just resize it a little bit, maybe like this. And actually, I'm thinking, should I put this within the button or just create it right here? Maybe I'm just going to create it right here. And then we're going to put it inside of the button. So now we can actually grab this little star that is waiting for us here. I'm going to press Command and X, cut it. It's now on my clipboard and I can paste it within the stars frame. So now we have this right here and we can just duplicate it a bunch of times. So I'm going to just resize it, make it a little bit smaller, put one right here. Then I'm going to hold down Option on my keyboard, drag it to duplicate it. We're going to have one right here as well. Let me just see what is the placement here. Yeah, so we have one smaller here. So I'm going to just duplicate them and place them at the correct positions. I'm going to probably speed up this part of the video. Okay, so now we have the rough position and size of each of these stars. And now what we can do, and we should do, we need to deactivate all of these pins that are now activated on these stars. Because now if I resize their parent, which is the stars frame, you can see that their position messes up a little bit. So I just have to select all of them right here, and let's just press right here to the center of this little layout. And if this little blue dot is lighting up in the center, it means that we are all good. So if I now resize these stars, you can see that now they are moving nicely. And what we will be able to do is just, animate it from this position to this position, and they will nicely appear like that. Also, I'll make sure to set the overflow of the stars to visible to make sure that in case if we have any parts of these stars that are overflowing their parent, which is the stars frame, it will be visible. So now what I can do is I can actually place it within the button and if needed tweak the positionings further. So I'm going to just press Command and X and then paste it within the, I'm just thinking, should it be within the text wrapper or the button? I think it's going to be within the 3D button. And I'm going to just move it here to the top. And again, the problem is that it is relatively positioned. I can reorder it with the other layers within, but I want to be able to just position it on top of the text wrapper, and so this button frame. So I'm going to just set it to absolute positioning. And in this case, we're not going to activate, I think, these pins. I think we're going to just deactivate all of them and just center it with Option H and Option V on my keyboard. It centers horizontally and vertically. So now for some reason it's not visible. I don't know why. It's probably because we have a z-index lower on them. So z-index is 1. We need to set it to a higher number. Now we can see they're nicely visible. Yeah, I think this is going to be it. We're going to be able to animate it to sort of like this position. I think I'm not even going to tweak the positioning of these stars further. Maybe I can move this a little bit to the left. This one maybe can be right here. Okay, so now the positioning looks really good. And basically what I'm gonna now do is I'm gonna wrap the 3D button frame in another stack just to make sure that when we are actually creating the hover state, it is going to be really easy for us to scale the button up and also rotate everything, because then the stars, the text wrapper, and the backdrop will all be in the same group, 3D button, and we'll be able to rotate that. I need to do this because now if I just turn this 3D button into a component, let's just do it really quickly, you can see that now this 3D button frame that was like the top level frame, now it becomes this variant, and it cannot have any transforms here on the right panel, so scale and rotation cannot be added here. So now I don't really have any frame that wraps the stars, text wrapper, and backdrop that can have transforms. So that's why I need to add that additional wrapping. So 3D button will be wrapped inside of a stack with Option Command and Enter. It will be again set to with fit content, and then the overflow will be set to visible, so the stars are nicely visible. And then so this 3D button will be renamed to content, so this has the content of the button, and then the stack is the actual 3D button here. Gonna be super simple to animate this. We can just turn this into a component, so right click, create component, or Option Command and K, and now we see the component canvas here. On the component canvas we can define different variants for our components, or we can also create little hover states for them. So I will rename this variant to default, and then I'll create a hover state by clicking this little button below it and then clicking hover. So now we have defined a hover state. So all we have to do now is to define how it looks on the default state and then on the hover state. So on default, of course, we don't really want to see the stars, so we have to scale them down a little bit, like this. And then also we have to switch all of these stars to opacity 0. So I'm going to just select all of them and set the opacity to 0. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to the hover and just nicely define the hover state. So the stars will now appear here, so select all of them on the left, and on the right we can just switch the opacity to 1, and then the stars frame can be scaled up a little bit like this. Then what we also need is a little rotation and scale up. So to do that, we can select the content frame, we can go down to transforms. Now as you can see, we actually have the transform section here that we don't really have for these top level variants. For example, the default now here, you see that it doesn't have transforms. But thankfully, the content frame within has it, so I can click it, and then first maybe scale it up, 0.1 let's say, and then the rotation will be also added. It has a little bit of a rotation to the left, maybe -4 degrees, and basically that's it. That's the rotation that we need. And the last thing that we have to change is the position of the backdrop. As you can see, it moves a little bit to the left and to the bottom. So I can just simply select it and then press the arrows on my keyboard to move it to the left and then to move it to the bottom as well, just slightly. So now I think this is roughly the position of the backdrop that we have here on the original. And basically that's it. We kind of have the final effect. maybe we can slightly adjust the size of the stars frame so the stars, appear a little bit differently at different positions. But other than that, I think that is pretty much it. So now if we preview this, we will see that it has this amazing effect. So I'm going to go back to the tutorial page, and then I can press this little button here to preview my website, how it will look on the internet. And I can hover over this, and as you can see, I see the hover state, and it looks really nice. I can actually scale up this button component itself as well a little bit on the right panel, just to make sure that we can see it better. And yeah, now you can see that it is pretty much done. And oh, no, it is not. Oh my god, I forgot to do the highlight animation. So let's do that as well. The highlight will be really simple. It's gonna just be moved to the right. So I'm gonna find the highlight frame on the hover state here, and then I'm gonna just move it to the right. So I'm just pressing the right arrow key and then moving it to the right like this. Basically that's it. I'm going back to the preview, and you can now see that we also have the highlight and it looks much better. And at this point we might, want to tweak the positioning of the stars and stuff like that, but it's pretty much done. We can also go inside of the component, by the way, with double click, and then on the right panel we have this transition. If you click the primary variant here, here we can change the transition settings. So maybe we want it to bounce a little bit more, maybe we want it to be a little bit slower, and then when we hover over, we will have a little bit different effect. You can see that the stars as well bounce a little bit more. And so you can see that with Framer, you can have crazy ideas. You can create them really easily because you are just drawing frames, adding text layers, and then you can create components to create these interactions. And now you brought your idea to life without any help from a developer. And yeah, it's just a crazy world to live in. And at the end, you see, you just press the publish button in the top right, you click update, and then you can see that here's the link. I can open it here on my browser. You can see that it is a 3D button that learned from that site. So it's right here. You can also see the code here of the website. It's working. I can send it to my friends. They can also see it. So yeah, we're literally creating websites without any code as designers. And yeah, it is a beautiful feeling. So yeah, that's it for this video. I really do hope that it was helpful. Again, make sure to go down to the description. I have a bunch of links. For example, you can remix this project that we've just created. Take a look into it and see how it's actually structured and created. Also, there's going to be a link that you can use to create a free Framer account if you want to try it. And also take a look at Framer.university because I have a bunch of other remixable projects. So you can actually take a look at how different animations are created, how different scroll animations or basically just websites inside of Framer created. So I think it's a really helpful resource if you are learning Framer. Also, I'm going to leave that link in the description for the video about relative and upside positioning, so you can take a little bit more looks into that as well, because it actually will help you a lot in creating nice and responsive websites with great structure that are actually also super easy to maintain. And yeah, make sure to also write a comment down below if you enjoyed this video. Let me know. And yeah, like this video, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.